Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Thank you for being here today for this episode of Move Like This. Today, we are going down a little bit of a different road and talking to Rob Lucas, who is the Director of Corporate Initiatives at the Alzheimer's Association. So thank you for being here today, Rob.
Great to be here, Bonnie. Thank you.
So I was recently introduced to Rob by Priscilla Hammonds at Barry Dunn, who was on the podcast back in April. And I generally, any introduction, I figure I'm going to take it and get the opportunity to meet some new and interesting people. And Rob was one of those people where I felt an immediate kinship. We discovered during our first conversation that we had so many things in common, including a personal connection to Alzheimer's. And at the end of that call, Rob asked if I would be interested in joining the Accounting Industry Leadership Council, which I promptly did. And I am excited about, helping out in this way. So to kick off this conversation, I would like to talk about what led to the creation of the Accounting Industry Leadership Council of the Alzheimer's Association in the first place.
So, Bonnie, next week will be 7 years at the Alzheimer's Association, and it's been a wonderful ride. And one of the first companies I met when I joined the association was a top 50 accounting firm called Prager Metis in New York City. And Prager Metis really had a fascinating story. Their co-CEOs at the time, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, they had both lost their fathers to Alzheimer's the same month, a year or two earlier. And another executive who was one of the first volunteers I met also lost his dad to Alzheimer's. So Prager Metis, they had about a dozen offices across the country, and they started to support our mission, primarily through getting their different offices engaged in our walk to end Alzheimer's. And they quickly started to raise some very significant revenue. They became a national team for the walk. And in 2019, I think they raised over $250,000. So this volunteer and myself, we decided in the fall of 2019, let's invite other accounting firms to join this effort. He had worked at other Big Four firms and other large firms, and I had started corporate partnership councils in previous lives. So I kind of knew enough to be dangerous. And we said, yeah, let's do this. Let's invite other accounting firms to join, and we'll start a volunteer leadership council for people who are passionate about the cause. And the reason we wanted to do this was really the shared value, whereas accountants often see, or they don't see, those early warning signs of cognitive decline, as financial matters are often that trigger point for cognitive decline. So we developed the framework. We were interviewed by Accounting Today magazine, and they had this wonderful feature article announcing the launching of the Alzheimer's Association Accounting Industry Leadership Council. And that article ran on March 5th, 2020. And the next week, the world basically shut down to the pandemic. So our timing could not have been worse. And it was impossible to get companies to join our council when they were trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. So I did what any good fundraiser would do in an organization like ours, and that's I reached out to our chapter system. We have 75 chapters across the country, and I knew we had a partner at Deloitte on the New York City chapter board. Lou, would you be on our council? Yes. I knew we had a partner at PwC who was on our Hope on the Harbor Gala committee in Boston. John, will you be on our council? And they said yes. So the first year was very, very difficult, but we got a council together. We had, I think, 10 firms that first year. And then the next year, 2021, we added 10 more firms. And we went from about $260,000 the first year to almost $700,000 the next year in 2021. And then we decided for 2022, let's launch a legal industry leadership council. So we have two industry councils, and there's three primary goals. One is to educate the industry that we're here to help each and every family that needs our help. We're here for every family. Two, provide volunteer leadership opportunities in the communities for those that are passionate about our cause. And then three, help us fundraise to support the mission. Last year, the two councils raised over $1.5 million to support our vision of a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. And we're honored that you and the Accounting Move Project have joined the council. So it's been a lot of fun. And kudos to Prager Metis for helping us start this. But now we really have some tremendous momentum.
Yeah, I was so impressed with the number of firms and the passion that the people that are members of this leadership council have, and it consider it a real honor to be a part of it, and am excited about getting even more involved over the coming months.
It's such a great group of volunteers. It really is.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you mentioned just a moment ago is kind of the role that accountants and financial planners play in our lives. And frankly, they're often called upon to have some difficult conversations with their clients around things like estate planning or asset protection, and when and how to manage the finances for aging loved ones. So, what have you heard from members, particularly on this front? And do you have any advice on how to approach these complicated situations and conversations?
Yeah, they see this issue all the time, Bonnie, which really gets to the shared value of why we have these two industry councils. Accountants, lawyers, financial planners, they can play an instrumental role in helping families navigate important financial issues in the wake of an Alzheimer's diagnosis. I was talking to one law firm that does estate planning, and they said that about 90% of their clients, their family members, have some type of cognitive decline. So the numbers are alarming. And in following a diagnosis, it's really important to have conversations about future healthcare, financial, and legal plans. And these conversations, as you mentioned, they can be very difficult.
Mhm.
But providing the person living with the disease a voice in these important issues can really help guide future decisions. And that's why early detection is so important. So many of the folks on the council have what they call a trusted contact from their clients, someone who they can call on if they potentially see that something's up moment. And I highly recommend that folks in these industries try to have a trusted contact in addition to their clients, someone that they can call upon.
Oh, okay. And is that typically a family member, or is that often somebody that may be outside of the family?
It typically is a family member. It typically is a spouse, could be a sibling, um, typically in the family. Yeah,
Yeah, but it makes sense when you're talking about early detection. The earlier it is detected, the more cognizant the individual is going to be and the better decisions they're going to be able to make. While still, just the idea of that is terrifying to me as somebody whose grandfather died of Alzheimer's. But you do want to know so you can make plans and prepare and do everything you can to kind of make your life and that of your loved ones as easy as possible.
absolutely. It affects the whole family. So the whole family really needs to be in on this and at the earliest possible moment.
Excellent. Well, let's get a little bit broader and talk about the work of the Alzheimer's Association as a whole. So, as I mentioned, my grandfather had Alzheimer's disease, and I remember all too much, the challenges that came along with that. Um, and personally, I want to hear that we're right on the verge of a cure. So, what good news do you have for us regarding research and treatments?
But we all want to hear that, and finding the cures for Alzheimer's and dementia, it won't be easy, and we know we cannot do it alone. And that's why I'm really grateful to you, Bonnie, for giving us this platform to share our cause with others in the industry. Um, Unlocking the mysteries of the human brain is, and I'm no scientist, that's for sure, but that's one of the greatest scientific challenges of the 21st century. We're confident, though, that with better treatments, earlier detection, and prevention strategies, we'll be able to, in the foreseeable future, find these cures. And the speed for which these achievements occur is directly related to the commitment to Alzheimer's research and dementia research. So what I can tell you is that for the first time ever, we can now say that we are in the era of treatment. Could not say that three when I started 7 years ago. We've had 3 therapies approved by the FDA over the past 3 years, 2 of which can slow the progression of the disease in the early stages. Another drug by Eli Lilly will hopefully be approved later this year, and this is showing great efficacy in the phase 3 clinical trials. Now, these are not cures. We have to be, these are not cures, but they can slow down the progression of the disease. And these are wins. They're smaller wins, but what we have seen from other diseases that have been ultimately cured is that small wins lead to bigger wins. So we are the world's largest private non-funder of Alzheimer's disease and dementia research. We're the largest. The only 2 entities that are funding more research are the US and Chinese governments. Last year alone, we invested $100 million in research. And our current research portfolio is $405 million. That's what we have in play right now, funding more than 1,100 active projects in 56 countries across the globe. In July, the Alzheimer's Association International Conference will take place in Philadelphia. It's the world's largest gathering of dementia researchers, scientists, clinicians, venture philanthropists, and we're going to really share research across the disciplines and address common challenges and share new discoveries. Each year we have this Alzheimer's Association International Conference. It rotates among global capitals. It was in Amsterdam last year. So it's in Philadelphia this year. We expect to have over 10,000 people there. And this is really a phenomenal opportunity to share the latest research. We're also very active in advocating for federal funding, for federal research funding from the NIH. Today, Alzheimer's and dementia research funding is approximately $3.8 billion a year on top of what we're doing from the NIH. 12 years ago, that was about 500 million. It's now $3.8 billion a year annually for Alzheimer's research. So this is an extraordinarily exciting time in Alzheimer's disease research.
Wow, it certainly is. Well, and that is outstanding news. And I love that to hear about the drugs that are slowing the progression. Like you say, it's not a cure, but it gives greater quality of life to people for a longer period of time, which is nothing to, ignore or, call a small deal. That can be a really big deal. So that's
It sure
exciting.
can. I mean, it could mean the difference of attending a son or daughter's wedding or seeing a graduation, these life moments to have extra time. So you're absolutely right.
Well, not to be a downer, but on the flip side, what are some of the biggest issues and barriers that the Alzheimer's Association and medical professionals and researchers and everyone that's out there working to find a cure face when it comes to diagnosing and treating this disease?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the greatest barriers we face is the stigma behind the disease, that it's just an old person's disease and that there's nothing you can do about it. Many people having issues with their cognition suspect that there's a problem well before they raise concerns with their doctor. Unfortunately, there's often a considerable gap between the time someone first starts experiencing cognitive issues and going to their doctor for help. I think it's part of it is because it is so frightening. So Alzheimer's disease is the #1 health concern for Americans of every age group. not just the silent generation or baby boomers like myself, but millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. It is the number one health concern for Americans of every age group. So it's common for people to dismiss changes in their memory and think of it as, oh, it's just getting older. And while it's true, we all experience some level of cognitive decline as we age. When the decline starts to interfere with daily living, it's best to get it checked as soon as possible. One of the most alarming statistics is that only half of the people living with Alzheimer's have been diagnosed, have been formally diagnosed. And of that, half of those folks are not told about the diagnosis from their physician. So we have to do better education with starting with primary care physicians about Alzheimer's disease and the fact that we are here to help people. One of the stories that we heard, a lawyer on our legal industry leadership council was telling me a story about this couple in their 70s, and the husband was experiencing some cognitive decline. They knew it, but they weren't dealing with it, to what I just said. They just were ignoring it, for lack of a better word. And it took a call from their accountant. And the accountant, and maybe the wife was that trusted contact, because the accountant didn't call the husband. The accountant called the wife. And he said to her, I'm worried about Joe. He called me yesterday asking about a property that you all had sold 20 years ago. And that's when the wife said, okay, Joe, we're going to the doctor. So, we hear these stories far too often, and we're trying to overcome that. And that's why the working and reaching out to the accounting industry is so important, because through this huge industry, we can reach so many families that need our help. We also need to promote brain health. So that's kind of important as well for everyone with a brain, which is pretty much everyone. So we just launched 10 healthy habits for your brain, that everyone needs to know, as up to 40% of cognitive decline may be prevented through healthier lifestyle choices. And these are basic things like, challenging your mind, being active with your mind, being active physically, controlling your blood pressure. There is a direct correlation between heart health and brain health, eating right, getting enough sleep. So we just launched 10 healthy habits for your brain. The bottom line is that until we find the cures, we are here to help every family facing an Alzheimer's diagnosis. So people can call us. We have a 24/7 helpline, and that's 800-272-3900. And that's staffed by master's level clinicians and social workers. And we're available 365 days a year. And we can help families navigate a variety of disease related issues. Again, that number, and we encourage people to call us, 800-272-3900. And then you can always go to alz.org, where we have so much information. We have, for instance, one of the most difficult conversations, Bonnie, is to have that conversation with a loved one when it's time to take away the keys to the car.
Yeah.
And we have videos on that, on how to have that conversation. So any help you need, we're here to help.
That's awesome, and I'll include all this information in the show notes as well.
Great.
Including a link to those 10 things to do. I mean, the ones you listed off sound like 10 things, good things to do, not only for your brain, but for your heart and your muscles and all of these things that we know we should be getting more exercise. We should be eating better. So well, I'll definitely be sharing all that information
Great.
with listeners. But so I am going to be heading up a team for the Atlanta walk in November.
Awesome.
So I'm everyone listening here and probably everyone out there, expect to hear more about that from me in the coming months. But for those that are listening, Rob, tell us how we can get more involved, and what is on the horizon for the Alzheimer's Association.
So we'd love to have more accounting firms join our accounting industry leadership council. So firms we're blessed to have some of the largest firms in the world, but we also have smaller firms And so if you have a passion for this disease, if this affects your clients and their families, we'd love to have you join the Accounting Industry Leadership Council. We meet once a month, once every 3 months for an hour. That's it. There is no financial commitment, but there is a commitment to make an effort. And so, like, you're going to start your Atlanta walk team. So everyone, donate to Bonnie's Atlanta walk team. But that's really what it's all about. It's a wonderful group of volunteers, and we network and share best practices. There's roughly 800,000 CPAs in America and tens of thousands of firms. So they're all invited to join us. And Bonnie, I'm sure you'll put the contact information in there. As for what's on the horizon, we believe a cure is within reach, hopefully in my lifetime. You mentioned the Walk to End Alzheimer's. This is the world's largest annual fundraising event for Alzheimer's. And we have over 630 walks across America. So any major sized town, city, we're going to have a Walk to End Alzheimer's in your community. And it's a fall event. So there is plenty of time to get engaged. And a central part of the walk is what we call the Promise Garden. So when you register for the walk and you attend the walk, you're given a flywheel flower. And it's a plastic kind of flywheel that everyone kind of walks and holds up. And there's 4 colors. And you choose the color that best represents your personal journey with Alzheimer's or dementia. And so a purple flower is for someone who has lost someone to the disease. A yellow flower is for someone who is currently supporting or providing care for a loved one living with the disease. And there's over 11 million caregivers, unpaid caregivers for people with Alzheimer's in America. An orange flower is for a participant who generally supports the cause. And a blue flower is if you are currently living with dementia. And a couple of years ago, we added another flower. We added a white flower for our on-stage ceremony. And we will typically have a key person. Often it's a young a child that will go on stage with a white flower. And that symbolizes that the first survivor of Alzheimer's is out there. It could be someone my age, or perhaps a bit younger or older, but they are out there, and we will not stop until we have that first survivor. So that's what we're focused on 24/7.
I love that, and I can't wait till we have the first and then the second and the third and the 100th and, on from there. And really do appreciate all the work you're doing and the organization and all of the people that are volunteering too. I'm going to close this with a couple of just fun questions that entertain me and I hear entertain others as well. So, uh, Rob, when you were 5 years old or a child at some age, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, maybe around 6 or 7 when my mind remembered the first baseball game, but I wanted to be a shortstop for the New York Yankees.
Nice.
Yeah, didn't quite work out, but that's what I wanted to be.
We all have to have dreams, right? uh, well, and if you were given a chance to travel anywhere for free, you don't have to worry about time off or all those other things that keep us from traveling as much as we want to, where would you go and why?
Well, I had an opportunity to work for Save the Children, so I did a fair amount of traveling to see our programs globally. And the one continent that I have not been to yet, which the trip was planned, but it got canceled, is Africa. So I would love to go to Africa and go on a safari or two.
I am with
Absolutely.
you on that. I really want to travel to the African continent at some point, and I mean, there's so much to see there. It's one of those places where you just kind of have to pick a spot and make that your journey. But
Yep.
I am
Bucket list for sure.
yeah. And finally, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'd like to fly. I'd like to fly. I think that would, yeah, or live forever. One of the two, but flying would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be that it's funny because I get a lot of answers to this that are either flying or teleportation or something like that. And I think it was even on the last podcast episode, somebody said teleportation. And I'm like, I think that comes up so often because I talk to people in larger metropolitan areas that have to deal with traffic.
Right?
So that would make all of our lives so much easier.
Or
But
living forever with a healthy brain and body.
yeah, absolutely. I do have to say, I think my favorite answer to this, and it applies here, is from Angie Grissom, who is the CEO of the Rainmaker Companies. And she said she would like the power to heal. And
Nice.
I think that kind of sums this up well that
Oh, that's great.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully one day soon we'll have you back, Rob, and we'll be talking about the first survivors and all the advances that have been made. But for today, I just appreciate you being here and sharing all this information. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buell Russick, and until next time, keep moving forward.